Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead by Sheryl Sandberg. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. You're working at one of the fastest growing companies on the planet. It's a chaotic, exciting, brilliant place, but it was built by young men, for young men. And right now, you are very, very pregnant. Your feet have swollen 2 whole shoe sizes. Morning sickness isn't just for mornings anymore, it's an all-day affair. And walking from the distant parking lot to your office feels like a trek across the Sahara. One day, after a particularly rough morning, you're rushing to an important meeting. You finally find a parking spot, but it's a universe away. You do your best to sprint, which is more of a frantic waddle, and you arrive at the meeting nauseous, exhausted, and praying you don't get sick in front of a client. That night, you tell your husband about your day, and he mentions something simple. His company has reserved parking spots right up front for expectant mothers. A light bulb goes on. The very next day, you march into the office of the company's founders, 2 of the most brilliant and powerful young men in the world, and you find one of them doing yoga in a corner. You don't hesitate. You walk right up to him and say, "We need pregnancy parking." He looks up, thinks for a second, and agrees immediately. He tells you he had simply never thought of it before. That woman was Sheryl Sandberg. The company was Google. And that moment reveals the entire heart of her groundbreaking book, Lean In. It's a book that has sold millions of copies and has been translated into over 30 languages, sparking a global movement. But it's not just a business book. It's a story about the invisible rules that shape our lives, and the quiet courage it takes to rewrite them. Sandberg, the chief operating officer of Facebook, isn't just an executive, she's a keen observer of human nature. And in Lean In, she pulls back the curtain on a question that has puzzled so many of us. In a world where the doors of opportunity seem open, why are there still so few women at the top? The answer, she discovered, is far more complex than we think. It's a story of societal biases, hidden penalties, and the internal barriers we place on ourselves without even realizing it. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share the most powerful lessons from her journey. We're going to explore why ambition can feel like a dirty word, why success and likability don't always go hand in hand, and why the most important career decision you make might have nothing to do with your job at all. This isn't just a summary, it's a field guide to navigating the world as it is, so you can help build the world as it should be. By the end of our time together, you will understand the invisible forces that shape your own ambitions, and you'll be armed with the wisdom to not just sit at the table, but to build a bigger one for everyone. Book summary. Let's begin with a simple, yet startling truth. Men still run the world. When Sheryl Sandberg wrote Lean In, of the 195 independent countries in the world, only 17 were led by women. In the corporate world, the numbers were even more stark. Women held only a tiny fraction of executive positions and board seats. This wasn't what her generation expected. They were raised to believe that the hard battles had already been fought, that the glass ceiling had been cracked, and that it was only a matter of time before women took their fair share of leadership roles. But as the years went by, she noticed something strange. With each promotion, with each step up the ladder, there were fewer and fewer women beside her. More and more often, she was the only woman in the room. Her revolution, she realized, had stalled. So, what happened? The answer, she discovered, is a tangled web of external barriers, and, perhaps more surprisingly, internal ones. It's a phenomenon she calls the leadership ambition gap. It starts subtly, from the moment we're born. Studies show that parents tend to talk more to baby girls, but they also tend to underestimate their daughters' physical abilities, like crawling, while overestimating their sons'. Girls are praised for being pretty and nurturing, boys are praised for being smart and assertive. When a little boy takes charge on the playground, he's a leader. When a little girl does the same, she's often labeled bossy. Sandberg knows this label well. She was called bossy for much of her childhood. She was the kid who organized the neighborhood shows, directed her younger siblings like they were her first employees, and, as her brother and sister joked at her wedding, never actually played so much as she organized other children's play. While these stories are told with laughter now, she admits that for a long time, she felt a little bit of shame. It felt unseemly for a young girl to be so domineering. This conditioning follows us into the classroom. Teachers, often unconsciously, call on boys more frequently. Boys are more likely to shout out answers and have them heard, while girls who do the same are often reminded to raise their hands. Young women internalize these cues. They learn that being outspoken or aggressive isn't ladylike. They learn to be helpers, to be communal, to put others first. And this creates a profound internal conflict when they enter the professional world, where ambition, risk-taking, and self-advocacy are the very traits that lead to advancement. This brings us to one of the most powerful, and perhaps most uncomfortable ideas in the entire book, the imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like a fraud? Like at any moment, someone is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "We know you don't really belong here. The jig is up." If you have, you are not alone. Sandberg vividly remembers her senior year of college, when she was inducted into a prestigious honor society. The keynote speaker, a woman named Peggy McIntosh, gave a speech called "Feeling Like a Fraud." She explained that many high achievers, especially women, feel undeserving of their accomplishments. They believe their success is due to luck, or hard work, or fooling everyone, but not due to their own innate ability. Sandberg was captivated. The speaker was describing her inner world perfectly. Every time she took a test, she was sure she had failed. Every time she succeeded, she felt like she had just gotten away with it again. After the ceremony, she excitedly told a male classmate about the incredible speech. He just looked at her, confused, and asked, "Why would that be interesting?" It was a small moment, but it revealed a giant gap in perception. This feeling of being an imposter, this persistent self-doubt, is one of the heaviest anchors holding women back. She tells a story about a class she took in college with her younger brother, David. Her roommate, Carrie, was a brilliant literature major. Carrie read all 10 of the assigned books, in their original languages. Sandberg read all of the books, in English. Her brother, David, attended 2 lectures, read 1 book, and then came to them for a crash course before the final exam. After the 3-hour test, Sandberg was worried she hadn't connected the readings properly. Carrie was concerned she hadn't explained a key concept with enough nuance. They turned to David and asked how he felt. "I got the flat one," he announced with a grin. "The flat one?" they asked. "Yeah," he said. "The flat A." And he was right. They all got A's. But the difference was profound. Her brother wasn't overconfident. She and her friend were overly insecure. This isn't just about feelings, it has real-world consequences. This self-doubt causes women to consistently underestimate their own abilities. Study after study shows that when asked to evaluate their own performance, men tend to judge it as better than it actually is, while women judge theirs as worse. When a man succeeds, he credits his own skills. When a woman succeeds, she's more likely to attribute it to external factors. She got lucky or had help. Conversely, when a man fails, he points to a lack of effort. When a woman fails, she's more likely to believe it's due to an inherent lack of ability. This internalization of failure chips away at confidence and hurts future performance. So what's the solution? Sandberg's advice is twofold. First, you have to learn to separate the feeling from the fact. You can feel self-doubt without letting it dictate your actions. You can hear that voice in your head that says you're not ready, and you can thank it for sharing, and then do it anyway. Sometimes, she says, you have to fake it. She learned this as an aerobics instructor in the 80s, where she had to smile for a full hour, even on days she felt awful. But she found that after an hour of forcing a smile, she often genuinely felt happier. The same is true for confidence. Acting confident can actually make you feel more confident. This leads to the second, and more crucial, piece of advice. A phrase that has become a mantra for the lean-in movement. Sit at the table. A few years ago, Sandberg hosted a breakfast for the Treasury Secretary, inviting 15 executives from across Silicon Valley. The guests, mostly men, helped themselves to food and sat down at the large conference table. But the secretary's staff, all 4 of whom were women, took their food and sat in chairs on the side of the room. They had every right to be at that table. They were essential participants. But they had chosen to be spectators. Sandberg motioned for them to join, but they politely declined. After the meeting, she pulled them aside and explained that they belonged at the table. They were surprised at first, but then they understood. It was a watershed moment for her, seeing how this internal barrier, this feeling of not quite belonging, could cause talented women to physically sideline themselves. Sitting at the table is a metaphor for believing you belong. It's about raising your hand, speaking up, and reaching for opportunities. She saw this constantly at Google. When a new project was announced, the men would be banging down her door, explaining why they were the perfect person to lead it. The women, however, were more cautious. They would say things like, "I'm not sure I have all the skills yet," or "I've never done anything like that before." An internal report from Hewlett-Packard famously found that men apply for a job when they meet only 60% of the qualifications, but women apply only if they meet 100% of them. That difference is staggering. It means that women are systematically counting themselves out of opportunities that men are seizing. The ability to learn on the job, to grow into a role, is essential. But the voice of the imposter tells us we need to be perfect before we even begin. The message is clear: don't wait for an invitation. Don't wait until you're 100% sure. Trust in your ability to learn and adapt. Keep your hand up. Sandberg tells a humbling story about giving a talk on this very topic at Facebook. At the end, she said she would take 2 more questions. She answered them, and noticed that all the women in the audience put their hands down. But several men kept their hands up. And because there were still hands in the air, she took a few more questions, only from the men. Later that day, a young woman came to her and said, "I learned something today. I learned to keep my hand up." The words, Sandberg says, hit her like a ton of bricks. Even while giving a speech about gender issues, she had been blind to one playing out right in front of her. So, the first step is to lean into your own ambition. To fight the inner critic, to sit at the table, and to keep your hand held high. But what happens when you do? What happens when you're ambitious, confident, and successful? For men, the answer is simple: they are liked more. For women, the answer is much more complicated. And this brings us to the most shocking and important experiment in the book. In 2003, professors at Columbia and NYU took a real-life Harvard Business School case study about a successful venture capitalist named Heidi Roizen. Heidi was described as a brilliant operator who used her outgoing personality and vast network to become a powerhouse in the tech industry. The professors gave the case study to 2 groups of students. The first group read the story exactly as it was written. The second group read the exact same story, with only one word changed. Heidi was changed to Howard. The students were then asked for their impressions. Both groups rated Heidi and Howard as equally competent. Of course they did. Their accomplishments were identical. But when it came to likability, the results were stunning. Howard was seen as a fantastic colleague, a visionary, the kind of guy you'd love to work for. Heidi, on the other hand, was seen as selfish. She was not the type of person you would want to hire or work for. She was seen as aggressive and political. The same actions, the same words, the same success. But a different gender created a completely different impression. This, Sandberg argues, is the very core of why women are held back. We have a deep-seated cultural stereotype that men should be assertive, decisive, and driven. And women should be sensitive, nurturing, and communal. When Howard acts like a go-getter, he's living up to our expectations. We reward him for it. When Heidi acts like a go-getter, she's violating those expectations. We penalize her for it. This is the success and likability penalty. And it creates a terrible double bind. If a woman is competent, she's not seen as nice. If she's seen as really nice, she's often considered less competent. This isn't just a theory, it plays out in the real world every day. Sandberg recalls how, in business school, she and 6 male students won an award for having the highest first-year grades. The 6 men let everyone know about their achievement, and it gave them instant credibility. Their comments in class were given more weight. They received early job offers. Sandberg, however, instinctively knew that broadcasting her academic success would be a bad idea. She kept it a secret. Being at the top of the class made life easier for the men, but she knew it would have made her life harder. It would have branded her as too smart, too ambitious, and, as the Heidi study shows, less likable. This double bind makes everything more complicated, especially negotiation. Men are expected to negotiate. There's no harm in asking. But when women advocate for themselves, they are often seen as demanding and self-serving. Research shows that both men and women are less willing to work with a woman who has negotiated for a higher salary. So, what is a woman to do? Give up and accept less? No. Sandberg offers a brilliant strategy. It's about reframing the negotiation. She calls it think personally, act communally. Instead of saying "I deserve this," you can frame your request in a way that highlights a shared goal. When she was negotiating her own compensation with Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, she was nervous about pushing too hard. But her brother-in-law told her, "No man at your level would take the first offer." Motivated, she went back to Mark. But she didn't just make a demand. She started by saying, "Of course, you're hiring me to run your deal teams, so you want me to be a good negotiator. This is the only time you and I will ever be on opposite sides of the table." It was brilliant. She framed her personal negotiation as a demonstration of a skill that would benefit the company. She was still advocating for herself, but she did it in a communal way. She also advises using the word "we" instead of "I," saying "we had a great year" is received better than "I had a great year." It sounds silly, but it works. It positions you as a team player, not just a self-promoter. It's a frustrating tightrope to walk, but understanding the rules of the game allows you to play it more effectively. Of course, a career isn't just about navigating these tricky moments. It's about building a fulfilling life over the long term. And our traditional way of thinking about that is all wrong. We tend to think of a career as a ladder. A linear, step-by-step climb to the top. Sandberg argues that this metaphor is outdated and limiting. A much better one, she says, is a jungle gym. A ladder has only one path up, and a narrow view of the person in front of you. A jungle gym offers multiple paths. You can move sideways. You can swing over to a different section. You can even go down for a bit to get to a better spot. It's more creative, more flexible, and offers a better view along the way. Her own career is a perfect example. She went from the World Bank, to the Treasury Department, to an obscure tech startup called Google, and then to Facebook. None of these moves was a clear next step on a ladder. She wasn't just climbing up, she was climbing around, seeking growth and impact. When she was considering leaving her stable government job for the tech world, the bubble had just burst. It was a huge risk. And when she was deciding between several job offers, the one at Google was the lowest level and the most ill-defined. It had no team and no clear responsibilities. She made a spreadsheet to compare her options, and Google fared the worst on every metric. But then, Google's CEO, Eric Schmidt, gave her what she calls the best piece of career advice she's ever heard. He put his hand over her spreadsheet and said, "If you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, you don't ask what seat. You just get on." She realized that only one criterion mattered: fast growth. In a fast-growing company, there are always more opportunities than people to fill them. It's a place where you can build your own role, where the jungle gym is constantly expanding. This leads to her advice for planning your own jungle gym adventure. She recommends having 2 concurrent goals: a long-term dream and an 18-month plan. The long-term dream doesn't have to be specific. It's a guidepost, a direction. Maybe it's to work in a certain field, or to have a certain amount of autonomy, or to make a specific kind of impact on the world. For her, the dream was always to do something meaningful, to repair the world. The 18-month plan is more concrete. It sets goals for what your team can accomplish, and, just as important, what new skills you want to learn. It's about taking on stretch assignments, stepping outside your comfort zone, and actively seeking out challenges. This mindset is crucial, because for women, the temptation to play it safe is strong. And this temptation becomes most powerful when they start thinking about having a family. This brings us to one of the most counterintuitive and vital concepts in Lean In: don't leave before you leave. Sandberg tells the story of a young woman at Facebook who came to her, full of urgent questions about work-life balance. After a few minutes, Sandberg asked if she was expecting a child. The woman said no. She asked if she was married. No. In fact, she didn't even have a boyfriend. She was planning for a family that was potentially a decade away. And in doing so, she was already starting to lean back. This is a classic scenario. A woman, thinking about a future child, starts to mentally scale back her ambitions. She decides not to go for that promotion. She turns down the challenging project. She takes a smaller territory. She makes a series of small decisions to create space for a family that doesn't yet exist. The problem is, she still has years of work ahead of her. By the time the baby actually arrives, she has already fallen behind her peers. Her job is less engaging, less fulfilling, and offers fewer rewards. And then, when she has to make the difficult choice between staying at work or staying home, the choice is skewed. She's choosing between being a full-time mother and returning to a job that isn't that great anymore. The tragedy, Sandberg says, is that women end up leaving the workforce precisely because of the things they did to try and stay in it. Her advice is radical: the years leading up to having children are not the time to lean back. They're the critical time to lean in. Accelerate. Put your foot on the gas. Reach for every opportunity. Get that promotion. Take on that big project. Make your job as rewarding and challenging as possible. Because if you do, when the time comes to make a decision, you'll be making it from a position of strength. A compelling, fulfilling job makes the tough choice of returning to work a fair contest. Of course, leaning in at work is only half of the equation. The other half happens at home. And Sandberg is unequivocal about this. The single most important career decision a woman makes is whether she will have a life partner, and who that partner is. She tells her own story with raw honesty. When their first child was born, she and her husband, Dave, were living in different cities during the week. The vast majority of the childcare fell to her. The division of labor felt uneven, and it strained their marriage. They had fallen into the traditional, lopsided gender roles that so many couples do. Even when a husband and wife both work full-time, studies show that mothers do significantly more child care and housework. This is where another one of her powerful, and sometimes controversial, pieces of advice comes in. She warns women against maternal gatekeeping. That's the fancy term for, "Oh my God, that's not how you do it, just let me do it myself." When a mother is too critical or controlling of how a father helps with the baby, he tends to do less. It gives the mother power, but it's a power that ultimately traps her. Her advice to new mothers is simple: let your husband put the diaper on the baby any way he wants. Even if he puts it on the baby's head. Over time, he'll figure out the right end. But if he's forced to do it your way, pretty soon you'll be the one doing it every time. If you want a true partner, you must treat him as an equal, and equally capable, partner. And the benefits of this are enormous. Studies show that when husbands do more housework, wives are less depressed, marital conflict decreases, and couples are more likely to stay together. In fact, the risk of divorce is cut in half when a wife earns half the income and a husband does half the housework. And, she adds with a wink, couples who share responsibilities have more sex. This isn't about blaming men or women. It's about challenging the deep-seated expectations we all hold. We expect women to be nurturing, but we don't have the same expectation of men. We judge men by their professional success and women by their devotion to family. A truly equal world, she argues, would be one where women ran half our countries and companies, and men ran half our homes. This requires men to lean into their families, just as women need to lean into their careers. It means celebrating fathers who prioritize their children, and creating workplace policies that support them. But even with a true partner and a thriving career, there is still one final myth to dismantle. The myth of having it all. Sandberg calls this phrase the greatest trap ever set for women. It's an impossible ideal that makes everyone feel like they've fallen short. No one has it all. The very idea defies the basic laws of economics and common sense. Life is a series of trade-offs. A better question, she suggests, is not can we have it all, but can we do it all? And the answer, again, is no. The solution is to let go of the unattainable standard of perfection. There's a poster at Facebook that she has tried to embrace as a motto: done is better than perfect. Aiming for perfection leads to frustration and paralysis. Embracing the mess, accepting that things will be complicated and imperfect, is the key to contentment. She speaks candidly about her own struggles. The guilt she feels when she misses a parent-teacher conference. The anxiety when she sees other mothers volunteering full-time at school. The time her son, as a baby, was hurt and reached for his nanny instead of her. It pierced her heart, she admits. But she has also learned to manage the guilt, to trust the data that shows children of working mothers thrive, and to focus on being fully present in the moments she does have. Success, she concludes, isn't about having it all. Success is making the best choices we can. And accepting them. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with a call to action. A call to start talking. For too long, gender has been the elephant in the room. We ignore it, we talk around it, we pretend it doesn't exist because we're afraid of saying the wrong thing. Women are afraid of being seen as complainers. Men are afraid of being seen as sexist. But we cannot change what we are unaware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change. Talking about these biases, the Heidi/Howard effect, the ambition gap, The likability penalty makes the subconscious conscious. It allows us to question our own assumptions and the assumptions of others. And this isn't a battle of us versus them. It's not women against men. And it certainly shouldn't be women against women. The mommy wars, pitting stay-at-home mothers against working mothers, are a distraction. Both groups are trying to live up to inconsistent and impossible ideals. Instead of judging one another, we need to support one another. This is a collective effort. Men need to become active allies, sponsoring and mentoring women. And women need to look out for one another, acting not as competitors for a single token spot, but as a powerful coalition. The journey toward true equality is a long one. But it happens one conversation at a time. It happens when one manager realizes he's been interrupting his female colleagues and stops. It happens when one father decides to take paternity leave. It happens when one woman decides to apply for a job she's only 60% qualified for. It happens when one pregnant woman demands a parking spot. The revolution, Sandberg tells us, must be internalized. The shift to a more equal world will happen person by person. And we move closer to that world with each and every person who makes the quiet, courageous choice to lean in. Commentary. As we step back and look at the entirety of Lean In, what is the single most powerful lesson we can take away from it? For me, it's the profound realization that the world operates on a set of invisible rules. And for a long time, half the population wasn't given the rule book. Sheryl Sandberg's gift is that she doesn't just complain about the rules, she decodes them for us. She gives us the language and the framework to understand why things are the way they are. Why a confident man is a leader, but a confident woman is bossy. Why a successful man is admired, but a successful woman is often disliked. This isn't a book about blaming women. And it's not about blaming men. It's about empowering everyone by revealing the hidden biases and cultural currents that affect us all. It's about understanding that the battle for equality is fought on two fronts, out there, in the world, against systemic barriers, and in here, in our own minds, against the self-doubt and fear that hold us back. The beauty of her message is that it gives us a place to start. We may not be able to change the world overnight, but we can change how we operate within it, starting today. We can choose to sit at the table. We can choose to keep our hand up. We can reframe a negotiation. These are not grand, revolutionary acts. They are small, quiet moments of courage. But compounded over a lifetime, they are transformative. This book reminds us that personal choices are never made in a vacuum. They are shaped by expectations, by stereotypes, and by the pressures all around us. By making these forces visible, Sandberg gives us the power to consciously push back against them. So, how can you start applying these ideas to your own life, right now? Here are 3 simple actions to consider. First, take the Sit at the Table challenge. For the next week, in every meeting, every classroom, every group project, make a conscious effort to sit at the table, not on the sidelines. Don't take the chair against the wall. Take a seat where the action is. Notice how it changes your physical posture, your mindset, and your willingness to contribute. It's a small physical shift that can create a huge mental one. Second, apply the Heidi/Howard lens. The next time you hear a female leader, a teacher, a coach, or even a classmate described as too aggressive, difficult, or not a team player, pause for a moment. Ask yourself a simple question. Would I use the same word to describe a man who acted in the exact same way? This isn't about making excuses for anyone's behavior. It's about training yourself to spot unconscious bias in the world, and in yourself. And third, start one conversation. The final message of Lean In is that real change begins when we stop being silent. Pick one idea from our discussion today that resonated with you: the imposter syndrome, the jungle gym, the myth of doing it all. and share it with one person. A friend, a parent, a teacher. Ask them what they think. You don't have to have all the answers. The goal isn't to win a debate, it's to open a door. In the end, leaning in is not about being aggressive or selfish. It's about having the courage to be ambitious in any pursuit. It's about believing in your own potential and taking ownership of your own growth. It's a choice to bet on yourself. And it's a vital step toward building a world where every single one of us, regardless of our gender, is free to pursue our dreams with passion and purpose. A world where there are no female leaders, just leaders. That was a summary of Lean In, by Sheryl Sandberg. We've certainly touched on the big ideas today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary can only ever be a map. It can't replace the journey itself. The real magic happens in the quiet moments when you're reading, when a particular story or a single sentence resonates with you in a way you didn't see coming. This overview is designed to help you decide if this book deserves your time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a question or a bit of fire in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.